sounds like a story to me. Some crazy fable that you would not believe. Oh, but ain't she...
Welcome to the Avram Davidson universe, where we listen to some of the greatest stories ever written, adored by Ursula Le Guin, Neil Gaiman, Leonard Nimoy, Ray Bradbury, and Stephen King. Enjoy classic tales such as Are All the Seas with Oysters, The Golem, Sources of the Nile, and many others.
Hello, and welcome to the Avram Davidson podcast. My name is Damon Leaf. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I just want to do a big shout out to Seth Davis. He's the one who granted me this opportunity. And since I've been reading these short stories, I've been falling in love with Avram Davidson every single day. So I just want to really give a shout out to Seth. Thank you so much. And we're about to have the podcast start in just a moment. So today we're going to be reading Ogre and the Flea. It's a really exciting audiobook. I'm really excited for you guys to listen to it. The voice actor for the audiobook does a tremendous job. And the guest for today is going to be Taj Ben-John. He is a YouTuber, entertainer, and DJ. DJs parties all the time, and I'm telling you, he keeps those beats bumping. And here we are with Taj Ben-John. How you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going, Damon? How you doing, man? I'm doing excellent.
Doing good, man. Doing good. I haven't seen you in quite a while. What you been up to, man?
Yeah, it's a good question. Just DJing some shows. I changed the channel that I did for YouTube from Taji Politics to Taji TV. So I'm going to do a bigger content rollout coming out later on this year.
Okay, what kind of content are you going to get into?
Yeah, so instead of Taji Politics, just politics and stuff, it's going to be politics, lifestyle. I'm going to do more travel content. I'm thinking about some collaborations that we're doing. I got a collaboration with YouTuber named Stardust right now.
Okay.
I got some more urban exploration videos with the Phantom Friends channel as well. And yeah,
that's exciting, man. Where do you think that if your next place that you think you're going to be traveling outside of Orlando, where do you think that's going to be at?
Man, I want to do Texas.
All right, you're going to go to Austin, Texas, in the heart of it, aren't you?
Maybe Austin, Dallas. I definitely have Vegas planned at some point because I have an arrangement to get a free hotel stay in Vegas. So definitely plan on doing Vegas at some point.
All right.
And I want to check out the West Coast as well, you know?
Heck yeah, man. Well, you have such a busy life, so I do appreciate you coming onto this episode with us. You guys can follow Taj Ben-John on all of his socials, and we'll have those in the link in the description below as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and listen along to Ogre and the Flea.
Ogre and the Flea. Introduction by Peter S. Beagle. Having reached the stage of life where I am perfectly willing to believe anything of academics, I take a special personal delight in this lesser-known tale of Avram's. Its libelous suggestion of the lengths to which a museum director might go to protect his career isn't, of course, the only reason that I'm so fond of this story. I love its central notion, which I find hauntingly credible, as so many of Avram's modest proposals and almost theories so often are. For further reference, not to mention a lifetime's worth of truly wondrous delight, get at any cost, financial or moral, a copy of Adventures in Unhistory, published by George Sithers, Alswick Press, in 1993. And then there's the damn language again. It isn't so much that Professor Sunsman endearingly says Chairmany for Germany or Wally for Valley. It's that he refers to the Nächstenwally and to peasants who huddle fearingly together, as he would if he were translating himself directly from the German as he goes along. Avram is never wrong about stuff like that. Not even when the translation is from a language that doesn't exist. I know I keep saying it, but when it comes to pure sensitivity to the human use of words, the man has few peers and no equals. Without wishing to give away the kicker of the story within a story that propels the ogre, let me say that in recent years, similar speculations, developed at lumbering widescreen length, have become something of a cottage industry. For poignancy and provocativeness, I'll back this small jewel of a tale against any of them.
Ogre in the Vlie. When the menace of Dr. Ludwig Sanzmann first arose, like a cloud no bigger than a man's hand, Dr. Fred B. Turbeville, at 27, had been the youngest museum director in the country. And now, at 35, he was still one of the youngest. Moreover, he had a confident, if precarious, hold on greater glories to come. High on the list of benefactors and patrons, Mr. Winfield Scott H. Godbody was an almost dead, in more ways than one, certainty to will most of his substance to what would then become the Godbody Museum of Natural History, Dr. Fred B. Turbeville, director. The salary would be splendid, the expense account lavish and tax-free, and the director would have ample time to finish his great work, at present entitled Man Before the Dawn. Recondite, yet eminently readable. There were already 17 chapters devoted to the Mousterian, or Neanderthal, era alone. It would be certain to sell forever to schools and libraries. A big book, firm in the grasp, profusely illustrated, and done in so captivating a style that even a high school senior, picking it up unwarily in search of nudes, would be unable to extricate himself for hours. Mr. Godbody was a skeptic of the old-fashioned sort. "Where did Cain get his wife?" was a favorite cackle, accompanied by a nudge of his bony elbow. "Found any feathers from angels' wings yet?" was another. He had pioneered in supplying cotton prints to flour millers for sacking. The brand name washed out, the figured cloth was then used for underwear and children's dresses by the thrifty farmers. This had made him a wealthy man, and increased his devotion to science, the science which had destroyed the cosmogony of the M.E. Church South and invented washable ink. There was, at the moment, a minor hitch. Old Mr. Godbody affected to be shaken by the recent revelation of scandal in the anthropological hierarchy. From this respectable group, whose likenesses were known to every schoolchild, long since having replaced major and minor prophets alike in prestige and esteem, from this jolly little club, judgment falling like a bolt of thunder, the Piltdown Man had been expelled for cheating at cards. If Piltdown Man was a fake, he demanded querulously, why not all the rest? Java Man, Peiping Man, Australopithecus transvalensis, all bone scraps, plaster of Paris, and wishful thinking? In vain, Turbeville assured him that competent scholars had been leery of H. Piltdown for years. Ugly old Mr. Godbody testily replied, "And why didn't you say so?" Having lost one faith in his youth, the textile print prince was reluctant to lose another in his old age. But Dr. Turbeville trusted his patron's doubt was only a passing phase. His chief anxiety, a well-modulated one, was whether Mr. Godbody's health would carry him over the few weeks or months necessary to get past this crochet. In sum, Dr. Turbeville was about to reap the rewards of virtue and honest toil, and when he reflected on this, as he often did, it amused him to sing, a trifle off-key, a song from his childhood called Bringing in the Sheaves. Prior to his coming to Holden, the museum, an architectural gem of the purest late Chester A. Arthur, had been headed by a senile, though deserving, Democrat who had been washed into office on the high tide of the free silver movement, and the museum itself. Dr. Turbeville found that every worthless collection of unsaleable junk in the state made its way thither. Postage stamps of the sort sold by the pound on Nassau Street, stuffed and moldering opossums, tinted photographs of wall-eyed pioneers, hand-painted China, unclassified arrowheads by the gross, buttons from Confederate uniforms, legislative gavels, mounted fish, geological specimens collected by people with no faintest knowledge of geology, tomahawks. Oh, there was no end to the stuff. That is, there had been no end to the stuff until the appointment of Dr. Fred B. Turbeville. The trash still continued to come in, of course. There was no tactful way of stopping that. There were still many people to whom it seemed, when Uncle Tatum died, that the natural thing to do with Uncle Tatum's collection was to ship it to the Holden Museum. Dr. Turbeville had developed his own technique of handling such shipments. He had them arranged, at night, in as many showcases as might be needed, prominently labeled with the donors' names. Then he had the works photographed. To the contributory family, a gracious letter of thanks. To their local newspaper, a copy of the letter. To both family and paper, a manila envelope of glossy prints. And then, for Uncle Tatum's musty nonsense, tomahawks and all, the blessed oblivion of the cellars. "We are recataloguing," Dr. T explained to the few inquirers. "But you couldn't put Dr. Sansman in the cellar, could you?" The letters of thanks were worded in phrases as unchanging as a Buddhist litany. They extolled the career of the dead pioneer, gave proper credit to the sense of public interest displayed by his heirs, and hoped that their concern for the important work of the Holden Museum would be shared by others. The liturgical response was seldom wanting, and took the form of a check, the amount of which was, as Dr. Turbeville had lightly pointed out, deductible from income tax. Om Mani Padme Hum. Ah, that was a day when they opened the Hall of Practical Science. The governor, the senior U.S. senator, university presidents, hillbilly singers, and other public figures, scores of them. There was a real oil pump that pumped real oil, and a genuine cotton gin that ginned genuine cotton. It was the machines which set the tone for the exhibits, but Dr. Turbeville was proudest of the huge photographic montages mounted to give a three-dimensional effect. There was one of Mr. Opie Slauson, Slauson Oil and Natural Gas, pointing to the oil pool on the cross-section, in natural color, of a typical oleferous area. There was another of Mr. Purvey Smith, P.S. Cotton and P.S. Food Products, watching his prize steers nuzzle cottonseed cake while replicas of the lean kine of Egypt stared hungrily at a clump of grass. There were others, and how the checks had come in, and continued to come. But Dr. Philosophe, Ludwig Sansman, was coming too. Months of preparation had gone into what was, after all, really just a prestige exhibit, the display of bouche percée Indian life before the coming of the white man. A huge semicircular backdrop gave the illusion of distance. Buffalo grazed conveniently not too far away, and wild horses galloped along a hill crest. The primitive bouche percées ground corn, played games, scraped hides, wove weavings, put on war paint, rocked papooses, and received the non-socialized ministrations of the tribal medicine man. There were authentic wiki-ups, simulated campfires, and a bona fide buffalo skull. The bouche percées, who were oil Indians, drove up in their Packards from miles around, and received such a boost in tribal pride that they shortly afterward filed suit for $30 million against the federal government. They were finally awarded a judgment of $4 million, most of which the government deducted to cover the expense of itself in allowing the Bouche Percés to be swindled, cheated, and starved for the 3 generations preceding the discovery of oil. The tribal council voted to make the museum the custodian of its ceremonial regalia. And Dr. Turbeville received several honorary degrees and was made a member of learned societies. The only opposition to his efforts on behalf of American Indian culture came from the oldest and only surviving pure blood, Bouche Percé. Her name was Aunt Sally Wetherall. She was a prominent member of the Baptist Ladies' Auxiliary, and she steadfastly refused his offer to be photographed with her in front of all them heathen reliots and naked women. She also added that if her old granddaddy had ever caught any Bouche Percé a-weaving Navajo blankets like that hussy in the picture, he'd have slit her wizen. The trouble was that Aunt Sally Wetherall wouldn't come, and Dr. Sansman would. Any minute now. Dr. Turbeville had been expecting this visit for years. Dr. Sansman had mentioned it at every meeting. Sometimes his tones were bright and arch, sometimes they were gloomy and foreboding, and sometimes they were flat and brusque. The 2 men had come to Holden within a few months of one another. Dr. Turbeville from his 2-year stay at the Museum of Natural Philosophy in Boston, and Professor Sansman from a meager living translating in New York, whither he had come as an exile from his native country. Sansman was politically quite pure, with no taint of either far right or near left, was, in fact, a Goethe scholar, and what can be purer than a Goethe scholar? He had a post at the local denominational university, professor of Germanic and Oriental languages, neatly skipping the questionable Slavs. Dr. Turbeville was not an ungenerous man, and he was quite content to see Professor Sansman enjoy the full measure of linguistic success. But Doctor of Philosophy Ludwig Sansman was also an amateur anthropologist, paleontologist, and general antiquarian. And this was enough to chill the blood of any museum director or even curator. Such amateurs are occupational hazards. They bring one smelly cowbone and do it with a proud air of expectancy, fully anticipating the pronouncement of a new species of Megatherium or Brontosaurus. Although Dr. Sansman had not, so far, done that, he often put Turbeville in mind of the verse, "A little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deeply or touch not the Husis spring." Ah, well, better to have it over with and done. It would be necessary to take a firm line, and then finished. No more hints of precious secrets, world-shaking discoveries, carefully guarded treasures, and so on. When the professor arrived, Dr. Turbeville ran his left hand rapidly across his waving brown hair, still thick, praise be, smiled his famous warm and boyish smile, held his right hand out in welcome. But with horror, he saw that Sansman had a cardboard carton with him. The worst. Oh, the things one has to put up with. If not Mr. Godbody, then Professor... "My dear Mr. Turbeville, I've looked forward to this our meeting for so long. I cannot tell you." But, of course, he would. He shook the proffered hand, sat down, held the carton as if it contained wedding cake, took out a handkerchief, wiped his rosy face, and panted. Then he began to speak. "Dr. Turbeville." The name assumed the qualities of an indictment. "What is that which they used always to tell us? Urmensch. Primal man, that is. He was a stunted little creature, like a chimpanzee with a molybdenum deficiency. And he, which is to say we, grew larger and bigger and more so until, with the help of the actuarial tables of the insurance companies, we have our present great size attained and life expectancy. And we presumably will greater grow yet. But Dr. Turbeville quivered. What then comes to pass? An anthropologist goes into an apotheke, a drugstore, yes? In Peking? Oh, a beautiful city. I have been there. I love it with all my heart. He goes into a native Chinese pharmacy, and there, what is it that he finds? He finds, amongst the dried dragon bones, powdered bats, tiger's gall, rhinoceros horn, and pickled serpents, 2 human-like gigantic molar teeth. And then, behold, for this is wonderful, the whole picture changes. Oh my, thought Dr. Turbeville. Now Primal Man becomes huge, tremendous, like the sons of Anak in the first Moses book. We must now posit for him ancestors like the great apes of your Edgar Burroughs Rice. And how is it that we, his children, have shrunken? Pitiful. Instead of the pigs becoming elephants, the elephants are becoming pigs. Dr. Sandsman clicked his tongue. But that is nothing at all. Wherefore have I come to you now? To make known to you a something that is so much more startling. I must begin earlier than our own times. Charles V. Dr. Turbeville quavered. I beg your pardon? Charles V of Habsburg. In 1555, Charles the Emperor retires? Abdicates. His brother, Ferdinand, succeeds him as sovereign of the Habsburg dominions, and Charles retreats himself to a monastery. With age, with cares, with maladies oppressed, he seeks the refuge of monastic rest. Professor Sandsman, Dr. Turbeville began, stopped, blinked. Yes, I digress. Well, Charles and Ferdinand. A medallion is struck. Charles one side, Ferdinand the other. And the date, 1555. Here is the medallion. Dr. Sandsman reached into an inner pocket and pulled out a flat little box, such as jewelers use. He opened it. Inside lay a blackened disc about the size of a silver dollar and a piece of paper with 2 rubbings, the profiles of 2 men, Latin mottos, and the date, 1555. Completely at sea, and feeling more and more sorry for himself, Dr. Turbeville looked at his rosy-faced and gray-haired caller, made a small, bewildered gesture. Soon you will understand everything. 1930, my vacations, I am still in Germany, I spend at Maldenhausen, a little rural hamlet in a valley. Then things are quiet. These German valleys, so green, remote, enchanting, full of mysteries. I drink beer and wine. I smoke my pipe. I go on long walks in the countryside. And since I am a scholar, and Evers the dog returns to his vomit, I spend also some time in the village archives. Many interesting things. A child named Simon. In 1555, a child named Simon is stolen by an ogre. Dr. Turbeville pressed a fist to his forehead and moaned faintly. Is what? He said fretfully. Please, you see the hole in the medallion? The child Simon wore it about his neck on a thong. They were very reverent, these peasant people. An imperial medallion, one wears it on one's bosom. A photostatic copy of the testimony. Professor Sandsman opened the box, removed papers. Photostatic copies, indeed, were among them, but the language was a monkish Latin and in Gothic lettering. Dr. Tuberville felt his eyes begin to hurt him, closed them. Professor Sandsman, dreadful man, spoke on. There were two witnesses, an old man of the name Sigismund, a boy called Lothar. It was winter. It was snow. The child Simon runs with his dog down the field. He shouts. He is afraid. Out of the snow behind him, the ogre comes. He is just as they always knew ogres to be, huge, hairy, crooked, clad in skins, carrying a cudgel. Terrible. Lothar runs for help. The old man cannot run, so he stays and prays. The ogre seizes up the child Simon and runs away with him, back into the fields, toward the hills, until the snow hides them. The people are aroused. They are fearful, but not surprised. This happens. There are wolves, there are bears, there are ogres. Such are the hazards of living on the remote farms. Dr. Tuberville shivered. A chill crept into his flesh. He rubbed his fingers to warm them. Folklore, he croaked. Old wives' tales. Dr. Sandsman waved his hands, then placed them on the photostats. This is not the Brothers Grimm, he said. These are contemporary accounts with eyewitnesses. I continue. The people go out in the storm, with dogs and pikes and even a few matchlocks. And since they huddle fearingly together, and the snow has hid all footmarks, it is not a surprise that they do not find the child or the ogre's spoor. The dog, yes, but he is quite dead. Crushed. One tremendous blow. The next day they search, and then the next, and then no more. Perhaps in the spring they will find some bones for Christian burial. The child had been warned that if he went too far from home, he would be stolen by an ogre. He did go too far from home, and he was stolen by an ogre. So, 1560. Dr. Tuberville ventured a small smile. The child has been dead for 5 years. He felt better now that he knew what was in the carton. He visualized the card, which would never, certainly never, be typed. Bones of child devoured by ogre in 1555. Gift of Professor Ludwig Sandsman, Doctor of Philosophy. The Goethe scholar swept on. In 1560, the child Simon, he said, is discovered trying to pilfer fowls from a farmyard in the next valley. He is naked, filthy, long-haired, lousy. He growls and cannot speak coherent speech. He fights. It is very sad. The museum director agreed that it was very sad. Then what was in the carton? Child Simon is tied. He is delivered up to his parents, who must lock him in a room to keep him from escaping. Gradually, he learns to speak again. And then comes to see him the burgomaster and the notary and the priest and the baron, and I should imagine half the people of the district. And they ask him to tell his story, speaking ever the truth. The ogre, he says, carried him away very distantly and high up to his cave, and there in his cave is his wife, the ogress, and a small ogre who is their child. At first, Simon fears they will consume him, but no. He is brought to be a companion to the ogre child who is ill. And children are adaptive, very adaptive. Simon plays with the ogre child, and the ogre brings back sheep and venison and other foods. At first, it is hard for Simon to eat the raw meat, so the ogress chews it soft for him. Please. Dr. Turbeville held up a protesting hand, but Professor Sandsman neither saw nor heard him. With gleaming eyes, gazing into the distance, he went on. It comes the spring. The ogre family sports in the forest, and Simon with him. Then comes again the autumn and winter, and at last the ogre child dies. It is said the parents cannot believe it. They moan to him. They rock him in their arms. No use. They bury him finally beneath the cave floor. Now you will ask, he informed the glassy-eyed Turbeville. Do they smear the body with red ochre as a symbol of life, of blood and flesh, as our scientists say? No. And why not? Because he is already smeared. All of them, all the time. They like it so. It is not early religion. It is early cosmetic only. He sighed. Dr. Turbeville echoed it. And so swiftly passed the years. Professor Sandsman patted his hand on the empty air to indicate the passing years. The old ogre is killed by a she-bear, and then the ogress will not eat. She whimpers and clasps Simon to her, and presently she grows cold and is dead. He is alone. The rest we know. Simon grows up, marries, has children, dies. But there are no more ogres. Not ever. Naturally, I am fascinated. I ask the peasants where there is a cave called the Cave of the Ogres. They look at me with slanting glances, but will not answer. I am patient. I come back each summer, 1931, 1932, 1933. Everyone knows me. I give small presents to the children. By myself, I wander in the hills and search for caves. 1934. There is a cow-tending child in the high pastures. We are friends. I speak of a cave near there. This, I say, is called Cave of the Ogres. The child laughs. No, no, he says, for that is another cave. It is located thus and so. And I find it where he says. But I am circumspect. I wait another year. Then I come and I make my private excavations, and I find this. He threw open the carton and unwrapped from many layers of cotton wool something brown and bony, and he set it in front of Dr. Turbeville. There was a fairly complete skeleton, but I took just the skull and jawbone. You recognize it at once, of course. And with it I found, as I expected, the medallion of Charles and Ferdinand. Simon had allowed them to bury it with the ogre child because he had been fond of it. It is all written in the photostatic paper copies. In 1936, the Nazis... Dr. Turbeville stared at the skull. No, 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 he whispered. It was not a very large skull. No, 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 he whispered, staring at the receding forehead and massive chinless jaw, the bulging eye ridges. So, tell me now, Sir Museum Director, is this not a find more remarkable than big teeth in a Peiping herb shop? His eyes seemed very young and very bright. Dr. Turbeville thought rapidly. It needed just something like this to set the Sunday supplements and Mr. Godbody ablaze and ruin forever both his reputation and that of the Holden Museum. Years and years of work, the 17 chapters on the Mousterian era alone in Man Before the Dawn, the bequest from old Mr. Godbody. Then the thought sprang fully formed in his mind. Where there had been one skeleton, there must be others, unspoiled by absurd 16th century paraphernalia, which had no business being there anyway. He arose, placed a hand on Professor Sandsman's shoulder. "My friend," he said in warm, golden, dulcet tones. "My friend, it will take some time before the Sandsman expedition of the Holden Museum will be ready to start. While you make the necessary personal preparations to lead us to the site of your truly astounding discovery, please oblige me by saying nothing about this to our, alas, unscholarly and often sensational press. Eh?" Dr. Sandsman's rosy face broke into 1,000 wrinkles, and tears of joy and gratitude rolled down his cheeks. Dr. Turbeville generously pretended not to see. "Imagine what a revolution this will produce," he said as if he were thinking aloud. "Instead of being tidily extinct for 50,000 years, our poor cousins survived into modern times. Fantastic. Our whole timetable will have to be rewritten." His voice died away. His eyes focused on Professor Sandsman, nodding his head, sniffling happily as he tied up his package. "Incidentally, my dear Professor," he said, "before you leave, I must show you some interesting potsherds that were dug up not a mile from here. You will be fascinated. Aztec influences. This way. Mind the stairs. I am afraid our cellar is not very well arranged at present. We have been recataloguing. This fascinating collection formerly belonged to a pioneer figure, the late Mr. Tatum Tompkins." Behind a small mountain of packing cases, Dr. Turbeville dealt Professor Sandsman a swift blow on the temple with one of Uncle Tatum's tomahawks. The sinister continental scholar fell without a sound, his rosy lips opened upon an unuttered aspirate. Dr. Turbeville made shift to bury him in the farthest corner of the cellar, and to pile upon his grave such a pyramid of uncatalogued horrors as need not, God and Godbody willing, be disturbed for several centuries. Dusting his hands and whistling, a trifle off-key, the hymn called Bringing in the Sheaves, Dr. Turbeville returned to the office above stairs. There he opened an atlas, looking at large-scale maps of Germany. A village named Maldenhausen in a valley. Where there had been one skeleton, there must be others, unspoiled by absurd 16th century paraphernalia, which had no business being there. His fingers skipped joyfully along the map, and in his mind's eye he saw himself already in those valleys with their lovely names: Friedenthal, Johannisthal, Hochstal, Neanderthal, Waldenthal. Beautiful valleys, green, remote, enchanting, full of mysteries.
All right, and so that was Ogre of the Vlee. Taj, what was your impression of the story?
You know, so it got published around like the 1950s, right? If I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, most of his work is from the 50s and 60s. Yeah.
It reads like the Twilight, like it's kind of like the the science fiction and the science fiction of old, of like the mid 20th century, you don't really think too much of. Like I'm a child of the 90s, right?
Right.
Like we got you as well, right? We're the tail end of the 20th century as far as like fiction, and we never see the stuff that happened before the 1960s very often. At least I don't. So from things like Martian invasion stuff, things like G-Men stuff, you don't really see too much. So like fiction, even like a short story fiction where it's like not so much science fiction, slightly science fiction at the same time. It's fascinating to see, or not see, but rather like hear and to read.
I agree. Honestly, like whenever I was reading the first couple of short stories that I had to read for this podcast, I'm not going to lie. It took me a little bit to kind of catch on to the vernacular of the words and stuff and sort of get into it really deeply.
Prose.
Yeah.
The prose is so fascinating because like sometimes like the way the whole described paintings and stuff like that, the author Avram, it's so fascinating. To me, it's like, I don't know.
But you found it overall. You found it really nice. You like the way it's written. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. It really is. And just like the transition from like, I feel like the majority of the story, like the first half is so normal. It's like, okay, it's just like a pony show type thing. Like, not a pony, but when I say pony show, I mean just like kind of like, okay, it's like a standard.
There's a lot of build up. There's a lot of build up.
And then you get the climactic situation when Sonisman, is that the when he's telling the story, that's the part where it's like, oh wow, now I'm really hooked on here. And then like the ending, the wrap up was like, oh snap. But that like final maybe 10 minutes of the story was something that was like, wow, this is the real meat of it.
It really, see, that's what I love about it so much, is that it truly builds up to it. Like it really gets into the details, and you kind of get lost in the backstory of these characters, and you really get to know them. And then all of a sudden, something crazy happens, like fucking with Professor Sazban killing Dr. Turbofil just out of nowhere. It really does show the like how this story like kind of gets to that climactic point, and it really makes you really feel for the characters. So what do you think about the actions that happened at the end of the story whenever he did end up killing Dr. Turbofil? What do you think about that? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I definitely don't agree with it. I know it was a fictional story, but sometimes some of the best discoveries are made by people that are not masters of their field. You know, sometimes you'll find crazy discoveries from people that are like complete civilians, like 12-year-old kids, right? That discover something. It's like, wow, it's a big discovery, like dinosaur bones and things like that.
Exactly.
Or like telescopes, and they like, oh, that's the first time I've seen the star system. And then they tell NASA, and like, you know, like, so to kill someone is just to grab all the glory of being the first discoverer. Yeah, it's just something I just can't really rock with at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that does. I have to agree with you. I think that out of every story that I've read so far, this story's killing, because each one of them has a death in it, by the way. So if you read the Cobblestones, if you read the Cobblestones of Saratoga Street, you read the last one I read, which is the Death-Footed Dragon. Both of them have a killing in it. And this one, I think, is it's the one that has the most personal gain behind it without so much of an emotional impact to it, right? The guy, you know, Dr. Sazman, he's trying to open up this museum. He's like, look at all this cool stuff. We know everything about the Neanderthals. We know all about this stuff. And now we're about to open up this museum, and I'm going to be I'm going to be director of the board. And then this guy comes in, Dr. Turbofil. Yeah. And he just like, look at this thing I found. It completely reshapes. It's a huge discovery. It reshapes everything that we know about like evolution of humanity. And so Sazba's just like, if this guy comes out with this information, my reputation's ruined. This museum's going to go under unless I do the finishing blow and I make the discovery. So that's when he hacks him and then starts doing his research so that he can try to find where the locations are. And so it's really, really cool. Really, really cool to hear the voice actor for Dr. Lupin, for that was his name. Yeah, Dr. Turbofil. Sorry, Dr. Turbofil. I feel like the voice actor, the person who did the audiobook, did such a good job of enunciating the accent. It's just so fun to listen to. But yeah, I do not really agree with the actions at the end of the story at all. It's definitely not something that I would ever recommend you ever do. Don't ever kill some guy to gain personal glory. Don't try that at home, kids. That sort of thing. All right. So now that we sort of read this story and we sort of we heard it, thinking about it ever being like a TV show or like a movie. Do you ever see it being publicized as that? And if so, do you see like who could be playing what characters?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can see it in two different ways. Like as a movie, I can see, all right, so the first half of the story, that's got to go really quick if it's a movie. Really, I mean, or a TV show as well. Really, really quick. And then you got to have the meat inside. If it was a movie, you got to have the meat of being the boy. Just like kind of like being friends, befriending the ogre family, getting kidnapped by the dad ogre originally, then befriending like the boy ogre, and just like kind of like a boy meets dog situation. Sorry to call the ogre a dog. They're like, and where like the ogres all die, and that's how like the boy grows up, kind of like a coming of age. Then the end is like, that'd be a crazy end after all that.
For sure. And I think that the story itself, I do agree with you that like it kind of has that like almost like a Christmas Carol vibe to it, in the way of which you have a narrator narrating something that's happening on screen, right?
Yeah.
So I could easily see it being like a short story, and you could hear the doctor guy, I keep forgetting, Dr. Turbofil. You can hear Dr. Turbofil in the background, right? As like the scenario of like the boy meeting the ogre and the ogre child and the mother and playing and having a good time with them. As all that is happening, Dr. Turbofil narrating in the background. So then you kind of get this like, like this really like homey attachment to Dr. Turbofil. And then, of course, at the very end, he dies, and it completely just throws everything off course. That's kind of how I would imagine it being played out, personally.
Yeah. I would also like see it as like if it were the TV show, I would keep the narration for the first half. And then like, have you seen the show Love, Death, and Robots?
Yeah.
On Netflix? I do like a Love, Death, and Robots episode no longer than 40 minutes. And then that's the end, kind of like Twilight, like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's why almost every single one of these, I feel like could be very much in their own anthology of like just their own episode of like maybe an hour 40 maximum, right? Not even that long. Short story put into a short film. That's how I would imagine it. But who do you think would be playing in this short story? Like, who do you think could be Dr. Turbofil? Who do you think could be Professor Sazman? Like, think of actors that you know.
I can definitely see Dr. Sazman being played by Goggins, Walter Goggins.
Oh shit! Okay,
and that could be animated as a voice actor, like Love, Death, and Robots, or he could be the wacky scientist, like
I could absolutely see that. Oh my gosh, him. That would be so great. And you know who and I know this is a completely different turn, but I kind of imagine Dr. Turbofil being played by Will Ferrell. Is that mean? Is that mean for me to say? Honestly, I truly believe that he would do a great job playing Dr. Turbofil, because he just has that like sort of way of going about characters like that. And he could play it so convincingly. And it would be a great story for sure. So having them two sort of pair up, and then of course having like some random kid be the kid and the ogre and stuff, of course, that could all be honestly, the whole thing could be animated. And I think that would be
another crazy add-in. I think that, have you ever seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Yeah.
So Dr. Turbofil, in my opinion, maybe he could be played by Anthony Head. That's the guy who played Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Let's talk about a deep cut.
That would be a fun. I think that'd be a fun casting. That'd be a fun casting.
I could honestly see that. I think that you should be the casting director for this and get them to end this short film, because I could see both of the people that you mentioned together in this. I could easily see that being done. It would be done so fantastically too. But who do you think you would play if you were to be a character in this? If you could choose to be any character in this fictional idea of a short film movie, who would you want to be if you had the choice?
It'd be very fun if I were playing both. It'd be fun if I could play Dr. Sandsman and Dr. Tuberfell at the same time.
Honestly,
like switch out wigs like Dr. Norbit.
I was thinking Norbit, or I was thinking Norbit. I was thinking like Medea, right? Like having like a crazy wild wig for Dr. Tuberville and having like honestly just bald look the way that you look right now as Dr. Sazman. You look very professional right now. So that would work perfectly. Oh my gosh, that'd be that's actually a really funny idea. I'd probably end up being the ogre. Let's be honest. I'd be the guy in the dirt kidnapping the child and raising him as my own.
Would you also be like the mom ogre as well?
Oh my god,
and the kid ogre?
I could see. Honestly, that would be the most convincing ogre and ogress. It's just me being both of those characters. Oh my gosh, that'd be so funny to see. Honestly, I'm now excited for us to make this short film. We should definitely get it together. Now, if you were to, now that we're talking about it being like a short film and stuff like that, we've talked a little bit about expanding on certain aspects of the film and what could be left out. Do you think anything in this story could be left out? Like, do you think there's any part of the story that you would be like, well, this is not necessarily that important of a piece of information. Maybe we should, replace it or rewrite it in some way.
I would expand on Dr. Turbofell's. I would expand on his dedication to his field of sociology.
Well, yeah,
archaeology.
Archaeology. Yeah, because
I would expand on his like love for that and like his like kind of like more instances of that, of just like cuts of like how he acts and how he like views the world and how he views the museum and everything like that. And
absolutely,
and like his not delusions of grandeur, but like his like vision for his museum, just to build up the motivation.
Yeah,
a little
absolutely.
bit more.
No, I totally agree with you on that. Honestly, that's what's so beautiful about the writing, is that it's really hard. It's almost impossible to leave anything out, because he did such a great job of describing these characters and did such a good job of writing them out on paper. And of course, the voice actor did a great job too in the audiobook, that you really can't leave anything out. And the best thing to do is to find little things about, like, Dr. Sazman's background, expanding on that. Maybe a little clip of Dr. Turbofil, a little clip of Dr. Turbofil being the first person when he first discovered this coin, in the burial site, or whenever he first discovered the bones, right? So, like, something like that could also be, I could easily see something like that being filmed as well, or maybe like, because they had, according to what I've read, they've had some sort of prior relationship. So maybe expanding on that a little bit more too. Like maybe they were colleagues, both in college, colleagues or something like that. I could easily see that being done.
Would you see a post-credit scene added in by a creative team, whoever does like a film adaptation of this or a TV show adaptation of this, doing like a post-credit scene?
Absolutely.
Where it's like, it's him doing his own voyage out to the middle of nowhere, Germany, and getting all the credit. And then like maybe Dr. Sandsman body, maybe his body gets found. But like the whole scene of Dr. Turbofil's body being found and Dr. Sazman just like trying to find a way to cover it up, and then him still being able to go off on a voyage and still being able to discover and being the first person to discover this. I absolutely see that being expanded upon. I think that's a great idea.
I could absolutely see that. That would be so fun. And then what do you see yourself really getting into short stories by Avram Davidson in the future? Honestly, this one was a really good one.
Yeah. I have a question. You've read a few of his works, Avram Davidson's works, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is my introduction to Avram Davidson.
Yeah.
Maybe this is me being an MCU person. Is there an expanding universe? Is it like kind of like Vonnegut or the MCU or something like that? Is there ever interconnectivity where it's like, these characters in the same shared universe?
So this is actually a really good question. So actually, there is a moment in this short story where he briefly mentions a country that is actually fake, because the work that he does is like he has this whole like series that's sort of Sherlock Holmesian, and it all takes place in this fake country, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I'll be honest. I was trying to look up where it mentions it in the book itself. It's like the Slavs or something like that. I think the Slavs. So, and that is a mention, that right there is a mention to the location, the fake country that is in the works by Avram for Dr. Esterhazy. Dr. Esterhazy, which is his Sherlock Holmesian character, as I mentioned. And basically what those are a bunch of short stories.
Ruritania and Gustark?
What was that?
Ruritania, right?
So the fake country name is Scythia Pannonia Transbalkania. It's this fake country that they put into it, which I guess Slavs is is not the short. So I guess to answer your question is really no. But if you read the Adventures of Dr. Esterhazy, they all take place in this fake country, and all of his short stories kind of had that tie-in together that you were asking about. Sort of like a series would, right? Because they're all short stories tied around the same character. So if you're interested in more of Avram Davidson's works and you're interested in that sort of story, I would highly recommend The Adventures of Dr. Esterhazy, because those are honestly, they're pretty good. I've read like one or two of his short stories already, and they're pretty fast. Honestly, there's this one scene where this one woman is like a queen of like a certain sect of the country, and they describe her as being like the most obese bitch of a woman. And it's just so funny the way that he describes her, because it's literally 3 sentences long, like the whole description of her. And it's ridiculous. And I love that about his work sometimes, especially in the Dr. Esterhazy series. His writing gets pretty ridiculous, and it makes me laugh. So definitely give that a read as well. So with that being said, is there anything else that you want to talk about Avram Davidson? Anything that you have in mind?
I think that this has really like stirred my interest and piqued my interest in, and as I said earlier, like 20th century fiction.
Yeah.
Like this makes me want to like go and check out the classic Doctor Who from the original BBC before 2005,
Absolutely.
It makes me look at like the old Star Trek episodes back when it was really controversial because they put like a black woman in the main cast. The old serials from Batman from the 1960s. Like I see my dad, like he's in his 60s now, watching like reruns of shows from when he was a kid, and maybe he's not crazy.
Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not.
Maybe he's not.
Maybe he's onto something. You'd be surprised. There's actually a lot of people and they're like of that age or even older who still remember certain short stories by Avram Davidson. You'd be really surprised. You should probably ask him about them.
Yeah,
especially one of the short stories that he does is called The Rogue Dragon and the Karchi Rain, which is a 2-part. It's 2 books that he does, and it's a whole sci-fi fantasy world of like this alien race that takes over during medieval times. It's great. Give that a listen and watch as well.
Does he kind of like fixate more on like on Eastern Europe because he might have family from there, from like
So
maybe his
Avram
parents
Davidson,
or-
so Avram Davidson actually was in the military, and so he traveled all across Asia and that area whenever he was doing whenever he was in the military. So he actually, like, the deaf-footed dragon is actually is based in China. And so and it's very like culture rich, like it has a lot of like culture, significance to it, which is really, really nice for him to be able to put that on display coming from his background. And of course, Cobblestone and Saratoga Street's from New York. So it's really interesting to see all of his different works being from all over the place because of how well traveled he is.
Yeah.
It's very
interesting.
It is. So hopefully you'll get to see more and read more, and maybe I'll have you on again in another episode.
Yeah. I'm down to read another one by Avram Davidson. This is I might read I might read one and I'll be like, hey, have you read this one yet?
Absolutely. Hit me up, man. If you read one and you're that stoked about it, let me know, man, and I'll definitely give it a read as well. All right. Taj, it was good having you on, man.
Of course, man. Thank you so much, Damon.
I got you, man. Have a good day.
All right, you as well. All right, enjoy, everybody.
That's the end of today's episode. Thank you for watching. And if you like this content and you want to see more of it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you would like to see more of me, or if you would have any suggestions for future guests, please, you can also leave the comments down below for that as well. And if you want to purchase this short story or any other short stories, there's a link down below for that as well. With that being said, that's the end of our episodes. Thank you and have a good day.
Oh, I suppose God only knows. It sounds like a story to me, some crazy fable that you would not believe.